So welcome again, guys. So this is the second chapter, India before the times of Shivaji Maharaj, and in this chapter we are going to see the administration or what happened before the time of Shivaji Maharaj. Also, this is the second chapter of 7th standard Maharashtra State book. So let's get started. So the first paragraph is we shall learn about various ruling powers in India. So what were the ruling powers in India before the times of Shivaji Maharaj? Right? In this lesson, various ruling power existed in India during that period. The first is your Pala dynasty. Pala in the 8th century was the famous dynasty in Bengal. So this was the Pala dynasty, also known as Pal dynasty. In central India, Gurjar Pratihar. So these are very important names. Gurjar Pratihar power spread up to Andhra, Kalinga, Vidarbha. So in these places, this Gurjar Pratihar power were spread: Kalinga, Vidarbha, West Kathiawar, Kannauj, Gujarat. So I'm gonna show you some maps. In those maps, it will be very clear about these rulers and their region where they were spread. Right. So as you can see here, this is Pala Empire. This was spread across eastern, northeastern part of India, mostly the West Bengal region. This is the West Bengal region. As you can see here, this region is West Bengal region. So in this part, basically in this part, Pala dynasty was there in the 8th century. And in central India, Gurjar Pratihar power spread to Andhra, Kalinga, Vidarbha. So as you can see here, this is Gurjar Pratiharas, right? Pratiharas. So now among the Rajput dynasty in North India, the Gahatwal and the Parmar dynasties were important ones. So these were Rajput dynasties. So here the Gahatwal and Parmar dynasties were important. Among Rajputs, Prithviraj Chauhan belonging to Chauhan dynasty was a valiant king. So Prithviraj Chauhan from the Rajput dynasty was a very important king. In the first war of Tarai, Prithviraj Chauhan had defeated Muhammad Ghori, but Muhammad Ghori defeated Prithviraj Chauhan in second war at Tarai. So these are some important facts about that period where Prithviraj Chauhan was a king, the Rajput dynasty, and there was a Parmar dynasty also. Now, Rajaraja I, Rajendra I, belonging to Chola dynasty in Tamil Nadu, were eminent rule. So now where is this Chola dynasty? So it is basically Tamil Nadu. As you can see, today's Tamil Nadu. So this is your Chola dynasty. This part is your Chola dynasty. This Tamil Nadu region. Basically here. This is your Tamil Nadu region. Here the Chola dynasty was there. Now the Cholas conquered the Maldives island, Sri Lanka, using their naval strength. So this is a very important fact. The Cholas also captured Maldives island in Sri Lanka using naval strength. So because as you can see here in the map, Sri Lanka was an island. Sri Lanka is an island. So it was very easy for them because they had a naval strength. So they basically used to come from here to here, Sri Lanka, and they also captured this Maldives island. Okay? Chola dynasty people. King Vishnuvardhan, belonging to the Hoysal dynasty in Karnataka, had conquered the whole Karnataka. So this is also some important fact. King Vishnuvardhan, belonging to Hoysal dynasty, he conquered a whole of the Karnataka. During the reign of Govinda III, of Rashtrakuta dynasty in Maharashtra. So, as you can see, this is your Rashtrakuta Empire. This is your Rashtrakuta Empire. So, in Maharashtra, the Rashtrakuta power spread from Kannauj to Rameshwaram. Later, Krishna III conquered the region to Allahabad. Three dynasties of the Shilaharas emerged in the western Maharashtra. One dynasty ruled over Thane and Raigad in the North Konkan, the second in the South Konkan, while the third dynasty ruled over some parts of present-day Kolhapur, Satara, Sangli, Belgaum district. So this is very important fact with your Maharashtra point of view. This paragraph basically. Three dynasties of Shilahars emerged in western Maharashtra. So this is basically, as you can see, this is your map of Maharashtra. So in this western Maharashtra part, three dynasties of Shilaharas emerged. One dynasty ruled over Thane and Raigad. As you can see, this is Thane, right? This is Thane. With Raigad, North Konkan, second in the South Konkan. So as you can see here, this is basically your Konkan region. This region is Konkan region. And the third dynasty ruled over some part of present-day Kolhapur, Satara, Sangli, Belgaum. So as you can see in the map, this is Belgaum, right? This is Satara, right? Solapur. So basically Western Maharashtra. Three dynasties of Shilaras. So this is very important. Now, the last prosperous power before the period of Shivaji Maharaj was that of Yadavas. So Yadavas were last prosperous power before the period of Shivaji Maharaj. Capital of Bhilam V of the Yadava dynasty was at Devgiri near Aurangabad. Right? So you can easily see here. So this is Devgiri, Aurangabad. As you can see in this map. So this is Aurangabad. Here, some place called Devgiri. Now, Devgiri near the Aurangabad was the capital of Yadav dynasty. So here in the Aurangabad region, Yadav dynasty was there. He extended his rule beyond the river Krishna. So as you can see, this is your Aurangabad region and this is your river Krishna flowing. So beyond this region also, uh, his Yadav dynasty extended his rule. The Yadav period is considered to be the golden period of Marathi languages. So here Marathi language and literature was spread throughout the Maharashtra. It was in this period that the Mahanubhav Panth and Warkari movement emerged. So we'll see later what is Warkari movement also. Invasion from northwest. So basically northwest frontier, as you can see here, this is the map of India. So when we talk about invasion from northwest, so this is basically a region of northwest, right? Where the countries like Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Iraq, Iran. So these from here the invasion came. Invasion is basically somebody trying to take the region from the country. Local dynasties like Yadavas and Rashtrakutas ruled in Maharashtra, but invaders from northwest conquered the local dynasties there and established their rule. In the meanwhile, the Arab power had emerged in Middle East. So now this paragraph is explaining who were these northwest invasion from where it came. So the Arab power basically this is known as Arab region, right? So the Arab power had emerged in Middle East. As you know, this region is known as Middle East region. This region is Middle East region. Arab rulers turned towards India to expand their empire. They wanted to expand their empire. The Arab general Muhammad bin Qasim, uh, the names are very important. Muhammad bin Qasim was an Arab general, attacked Sindh province in 8th century. Now, what is this Sindh province? So basically this region here is a Sindh province, right? So this was the your Sindh province near Pakistan's northern part and India's northern part, it is Sindh province in 8th century. So very early on, the Muhammad bin Qasim Arab general attacked Sindh province in 8th century. Notwithstanding the resistance of a king Tahir, he conquered the province of Sindh. And there was some resistance, but he eventually captured the Sindh province. Right? Due to this campaign, the Arab came into political contact with India for the first time. So remember, this is very important question for all of you guys. When was the first contact of Arab in India? So Muhammad bin Qasim, when he attacked Sindh province, so that time Arabs came into political contact with India for the first time. Right? Very important paragraph. In that, in the period that followed, Turks, Afghans, Mughals from Central Asia came to India and established their powers. So after that, Turks, Afghans, Mughals from Central Asia came to India and established their powers. So after the Arab entered, after that Turks, Afghans, as you can see in the map, this is Afghanistan, Turkmenistan. So from Central Asia, basically from here, Mongolia, Mughals came from Mongolia. So from Central Asia also and from Middle East also, lot of the ruler came to India for ruling the land. In the 11th century, the Turks began to invade India. So expanding their territory, they reached the northwest frontier of India. Sultan Mahmud of Ghazni invaded India many times. So this is a very important figure. Sultan Mahmud of Ghazni invaded India. So we will see here where is Ghazni. Ghazni. As you can see, this is Ghazni in Afghanistan. So from here, Sultan Muhammad of Ghazni, he attacked our northwest frontier. This is known as our northwest frontier, right? Invaded India many times. Now Sultan Muhammad of Ghazni invaded India many times. He plundered the rich temple at Mathura, Vrindavan, Kanauj, and Somnath and carried away enormous wealth with him. So, so these were some temples, very prominent temples Mathura, Vrindavan, Kanauj, Somnath, and carried away enormous wealth with him. The world-famous enriched library of Nalanda University was burned down by Bakhtiyar Khilji. Now, I will show you some images of Nalanda University and I will tell you some more information about Nalanda University. So, as you can see in the images, this was the Nalanda University of that time, basically. So, it was a very big university. Lots of the scholars from different countries came here to learn. It is in the very big campuses, and lots of hearsays about this university are also there. So it was destroyed by Bakhtiyar Khilji. Now we will learn some more things about Nalanda University. So it was an ancient Mahavira, a revered Buddhist monastery which also served as a renowned center of learning in the ancient kingdom of Magadha. The University of Nalanda obtained significant fame, prestige, and relevance during ancient times, and rose to legendary status due to its contribution to emergence of India as a great power around the 4th century. So, around the 4th century, this university was basically seen as a very important source for knowledge also and a great learning center. The site is located about 95 kilometers southeast of Patna near the city of Bihar and was one of the greatest center of learning in the world from the 5th century to 1200 century. Today it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So as you can see here, location of Nalanda. So these are some photos. So now so Nalanda University was burned down by Bakhtiyar Khilji Sultanate in the north. So some kingdoms in the north. In 1100 CE and 1178, Sultan Muhammad Ghuri of Ghur from the Afghanistan invaded India. So from Afghanistan, Muhammad Ghuri invaded India. He appointed Qutbuddin Aibak to look after the governance of the conquered territories in India. So later, after the death of Muhammad Ghuri in 1206 CE, Aibak began to rule the Indian territories under his rule independently. Aibak, who was initially a slave, became the ruler of Delhi. He died in 1210. So, as you can see, we had a lot of rulers from different countries also, like Afghanistan. So, lot of the people ruled India. Basically, this paragraph is telling about not a single ruler was there for India, but many rulers came and ruled India for various period of time. So India had many rulers from many religions. Now this is a activity. Do you know after Qutbuddin Aibak, Iltutmish, Razia, Ulban, Alauddin Khilji, Muhammad bin Tughlaq, Firoz Tughlaq, Ibrahim Lodi, and other sultans ruled over India. So, so these were all rulers that ruled over India after Qutbuddin Aibak. So, lot of rulers ruled India. Ibrahim Lodi was the last sultan. So, he was the last sultan, Ibrahim Lodi. He made many enemies because of his peculiar temperament. Right? Daulat Khan Lodi, governor of Punjab, invited Babur. invited Babur, the ruler of Kabul, to fight against Ibrahim Lodi. Babur defeated Ibrahim Lodi in the battle and thus Sultanate came to an end. So here Ibrahim Lodi was defeated, and why? Because he had a peculiar temperament, so he had a lot of enemies. And Babur was from Kabul, which is in Pakistan nowadays. Uh, he fought, Babur fought against Ibrahim Lodi, and he defeated Ibrahim Lodi, and thus the Sultanate or the kingdom Sultanate came to an end. Now, the kingdom of Vijayanagar. So, during the reign of Sultan Muhammad bin Tughlaq of Delhi, there were many revolts in south against the central power of Delhi. So let me just tell you where the Vijayanagar kingdom was. So as you can clearly see in this map, this was the Vijayanagara. So this was the Vijayanagara Empire in the south. Total Vijayanagara Empire. As you can see here, this was your Vijayanagara Empire in the south of India. So the brothers Harihar Bukka from the South India were Sardars in the service of Delhi Sultan. Taking advantage of instability in the south during the reign of Muhammad bin Tughlaq, they founded Kingdom of Vijayanagar. So who were these brothers? Harihar and Bukka, right? They founded the Kingdom of Vijayanagar in south in 1336, right? Hampi in today's Karnataka was the capital of their kingdom. So let us see where Hampi is. So here, as you can see, this is Hampi, right? In the Karnataka region, this is Hampi. So this was the capital of Vijayanagara Empire in southern India. As you can see, this is our India. This was the capital. So Hampi in today's Karnataka was the capital of this kingdom. Remember, capital of Vijayanagara. Harihar was the first king of Vijayanagara. So Harihar is the first king of Vijayanagara. Harihar was succeeded by his brother Bukka. Bukka brought the region up to Rameshwaram under his control. So Rameshwaram is a very important part in our history. So let us see where Rameshwaram is. So as you can see, this is Rameshwaram. So, so as you can see, this was a Rameshwaram under his control. Krishna Devaraya ascended the throne of Vijayanagara. Now, Krishna-Devaraya is a important ruler. He ascended the throne of Vijayanagara in 1500. So, when was Vijayanagara Empire basically started? So, it was started by brothers Hariharan and Bukka, right? And it was started in 1336. But in 1500, Krishnadev was the king of Vijayanagara. He conquered Vijayawada and Raj Mahendri and annexed the region of his kingdom. He defeated the combined forces of the armies of Sultan who had united under the leadership of Bahamani Sultan Muhammad Shah. So Krishnadev Raya was one of the important figures of Vijayanagara dynasty. He defeated Muhammad Shah. Muhammad Shah was the leader of Bahamani Sultan. During Krishnadev Raya's reign, the kingdom of Vijayanagara extended from Cuttack in the east to Goa. So basically you can see here. So here the city of Cuttack is there and here the city of Goa is there. Cuttack is basically Kolkata, today's Calcutta, and Goa is here. So whole uh, uh, this whole area was under his control. So Vijayanagara extended from Cuttack in the east up to Goa in the west, and from Raichur Dove in the north to Indian Ocean in the south. As you can see in the first page of the book, here you can see easily Cuttack, and this region basically is a Goa region. So from here, Cuttack to Goa, the region of Vijayanagara Empire was spreaded, and it was in the reign of Krishnadev Raya. Right? So now, and from Raichur Dove in the north to the Indian Ocean in the south. Now Krishnadev Raya died in 1530. Right? Now Krishnadev Raya was a scholar. He wrote Amukta Amalayada, a Telugu compendium on a polity. So basically, what is compendium? It is a kind of book which explains the polity of that time. So compendium is type of book. The Hazar Ram temple and the Vithal temple were built in Vijayanagara during his reign. So these are temple still there present. Vithal temple, Hazar Ram temple. The decline of Vijayanagara kingdom began with the death of Krishnadev Raya. So after the death of Krishnadev Raya, the Vijayanagar kingdom was on the decline. In 1565, at Talikot in the present state of Karnataka, there was a battle between Adil Shahi, Nizam Shahi. So Adil Shahi, Nizam Shahi, Qutub Shahi, Barid Shahi on one side and Vijayanagar on the other side. So due to conflicts between Vijayanagara and these combined Adil Shahi, Nizam Shahi, Qutub Shahi, and versus Vijayanagara. So Vijayanagara was defeated. Thereafter, dominance of Vijayanagara came to an end. So this was Adil Shahi, Nizam Shahi, Qutub Shahi. These were all Muslim leaders, and they were against Vijayanagara kingdom. The Bahmani kingdom, while Muhammad bin Tughlaq was still reigning, some of his Sardar in the Deccan rose in the rebellion against him. So this paragraph is talking about Bahmani kingdom. So we are going to see the Bahmani kingdom. As you can see here, this was the location of Bahmani kingdom. So this is your Bahmani kingdom. So the Bahmani Sultanate was a Persianate Muslim Empire of Deccan in South India. It was the first independent Muslim kingdom of Deccan, and was known for its perpetual wars with their Hindu rivals of Vijayanagara, and which would outlast the Sultanate. Kingdom later split into five successor states that were collectively known as Deccan Sultanate, that would eventually sack Vijayanagara capital after the Battle of Talikota. So, the Bahmani Kingdom. The Bahmani Kingdom, while Muhammad bin Tughlaq was still reigning, some of his Sardars in the Deccan rose in rebellion against him. The leaders of these Sardars, Hassan Gangu, defeated the army of Sultans of Delhi. A new kingdom known as Bahmani Kingdom came into existence. Bahmani Kingdom was basically a kingdom of a Muslim rulers in the south India. Came into existence in 1347. Hassan Gangu became the first Sultan of Bahmani Kingdom. He made the city of Gulbarga in Karnataka his capital. Now Muhammad Gawan. Muhammad Gawan was the chief vizier of Bahmani Kingdom. So Muhammad Gawan was the chief vizier of Bahmani Kingdom. Bahmani Kingdom was started by Hassan Gangu. Right? Hassan Gangu became the first Sultan of Bahmani Kingdom. Now he was a good administrator. He started paying the soldiers their salaries in cash. So this is very important event in the history. This Muhammad Gawan started paying his soldiers salaries in cash instead of through land. So this line says a lot about the administration of that time. So in earlier days, the payment was done through the land. Some part of the land was given to the workers or the soldiers for their part in administration or security. But he started paying. Chief Wazir of Bahmani, Muhammad Gawan, started paying their soldiers in cash. So this was a very important event in the history. He brought discipline in the army. He introduced many reforms in the land revenue system. He opened madrasa at Bidar for Arabic and Persian studies. So for Arabic and Persian studies, he opened madrasa. I think this madrasa still exists in Bidar. After the death of Muhammad Gawan, factionism increased during among the Bahmani Sardar. So the Bahmani Sardar basically separated and gone their way. The conflict with Vijayanagar kingdom had an adverse effect on Bahmani kingdom. The provincial governor began to act more independently. So the governors they of the Bahmani kingdom started to act independently. This led to disintegration of Bahmani kingdom, and that's why the Bahmani kingdom was divided into small five parts. So Imad Shahi of Warhad, Barid Shahi of Bidar, Adil Shahi of Bijapur, Nizam Shahi of Ahmednagar, and Qutub Shahi of Kolkata. So in southern region, this Bahmani kingdom was divided into five parts, right? But later, these five kingdoms, they came together to fought Vijayanagar Empire, and they won, right? Which was explained in the previous paragraph, right? So, uh, at the Battle of Talikot, in the present state of Karnataka, there was a battle between Adil Shahi, Nizam Shahi, Qutub Shahi, Biraj Shahi on one side and Vijayanagar on the other side. So, after splitting up into the five kingdoms from Bahmani kingdom, they fought the uh, Vijayanagar kingdom and won. Now, the Mughal power in 1526. So, in 1500 century, the Sultanate of Delhi came to an end. So, Sultanate came to an end, and Mughal power, that is, Mughal were from Central Asia. So, Central Asian power has established in Delhi. Babur. Babur was the founder of Mughal power. Right? So this was an important figure, Babur. Babur basically he was from Kabul. He came to fight a war, uh, and he won the war. Earlier we have a mention of Babur here. So this is the Ibrahim Lodi. He defeated Babur. He defeated Ibrahim Lodi. He came from Kabul to fight against Ibrahim Lodi. Right. So Babur was the founder of Mughal power. He was the king of Fargana in Central Asia in today's Uzbekistan. So as you can see here, this is your Uzbekistan. So this is your India. This is your Uzbekistan. From here, basically, he was the king of Fargana in Central Asia in today's Uzbekistan. So this is your Uzbekistan. From here, Babur came. He had heard of the wealth in India. Why he came? Because he had heard about wealth of India. So he planned an invasion of India. The reigning sultans of Delhi at that time was Ibrahim Lodi. So as I have already mentioned, the Ibrahim Lodi was a very important sultan of that time. But Daulat Khan Lodi was the governor of Punjab under Sultanate. The relationship between Ibrahim Lodi and Daulat Khan was strained. Daulat Khan Lodi invited Babur, who was in Kabul at that time, right, to march on India. Taking this opportunity, Babur invaded India. To repel Babur's invasion, Ibrahim Lodi started uh, with his army. There was a battle between Ibrahim Lodi and Babur on 21st April 1526 at Panipat. So Panipat was a battlefield, and Babur uh, came, and on 21st April 1526 at Panipat. In this battle, Babur made use of artillery effectively. Now, uh, this statement tells us about the warfare at that time. Artillery was used. What is artillery basically? Now we'll see. As you can see, this was the artillery that was used. Guns, right? Guns were used. So this was the artillery. Modern artillery was used at that time. So artillery effectively for the first time in India. Artillery was used for the first time in India. He defeated Ibrahim Lodi's army. This is known as the First Battle of Panipat. So this is very important paragraph with respect to history. It tells us about the war between Babur and Ibrahim Lodi to capture the empire of India, basically Delhi Empire. And here the artillery for first time was used. Artillery was basically gun, right? And effectively for the first time in India, he defeated Ibrahim Lodi's army. So this is the first battle of Panipat. After the battle of Panipat, Rana Sanga of Mewar fought all the Rajput kings together. Now, now this was the time basically for the Indian rulers to come together. So after the battle of Panipat, Rana Sanga of Mewar brought all Rajput together. There was a battle between Babur and Rana Sanga at Khanau. So this Rana Sanga, he brought all the Rajput kings together to have a battle with Babur, because he knew that now uh, Indian kingdom, or the Delhi, was in a attack from Mughal Sultanate. That's why he fought the battle with Babur at Khanau. Babur's artillery and reserve force played a key role in this battle, and Rana Sanga army was defeated, and Babur died in 1530. So 1500, Mughal empire was set up by Babur. After Babur, now this is a activity here. After Babur, Humayun from 1530 to 1539 and from 1555 to 1556 ascended the throne. Now Humayun was on the throne. He defeated Sher Shah. Sher Shah established the Sur dynasty on the throne of Delhi. After Humayun, Akbar 1556 to 1605 ascended the throne. There was a battle between Akbar and Himu at Panipat in 1556. This is the second battle of Panipat. Now, this is the your second battle of Panipat between Akbar and Himu, right? Akbar's ambition was to bring whole of India under his one central authority. After Akbar, Jahangir, that is 1605 to 1628, became the emperor. During his reign, his wife Noor Jahan played an active role in the administration. Jahangir was followed by Shah Jahan from 1628 to 1658 as the emperor. The next emperor after Shah Jahan was Aurangzeb from 1658 to 1707, reigned for a very long time. So this was a very long period, 1658 to 1707. Aurangzeb was there. After his death, Mughal became weak. So after Aurangzeb, Mughal empire was in very weak state. So the things to remember here was the first battle of Panipat, fought between Babur and Ibrahim Lodi. So Babur and Ibrahim Lodi, the first battle. The second battle was between Akbar and Himu. So Akbar and Himu, right? Now Akbar was the most powerful king of Mughal dynasty. So this is very important. Akbar was a very most powerful king of Mughal dynasty. When he tried to bring India under his central authority, he had to face opposition. So Maharana Pratap. So some these were some rulers from whom he faced some opposition. Maharana Pratap, Chand Bibi, Rani Durgavati struggled against him. His struggle is noteworthy. Now we'll say something about Maharana Pratap. After the death of Uday Singh, Maharana Pratap ascended the throne of Mewar. So now this Mewar becomes very important. So we have to see where Mewar is basically. So as you can see, this is your Mewar kingdom. This is your Mewar kingdom in the Rajasthan. As you can see here, this is your Rajasthan region. This is your Mewar region in the Rajasthan. He continued the struggle for Mewar existence till the very end. He struggled with Akbar to maintain his independence. He has become immortal in the history due to his qualities of valor, courage, self-respect, and sacrifice, etc. So Maharana Pratap was very important because he was very courageous. Self-respect was there. And he made a sacrifice. So he continued the struggle for Mewar existence, and he struggled with Akbar to maintain his independence. Now Chand Bibi. So these are some important rulers before the Shivaji Maharaj. Shivaji Maharaj was a very important ruler of Maharashtra. Chand Bibi. The Mughals attacked Ahmednagar, the capital of Nizam Shahi kingdom, in 1959, 55, 1599. The Mughal army put the fort of Ahmednagar under siege. Chand Bibi, the capable daughter of Hussain Nizam Shah of Ahmednagar, bravely defended the fort. At this time, there was an internal strife among the factions of Sardars in Nizam Shahi kingdom. This resulted in the murder of Chand Bibi. Later, the Mughal captured the fort of Ahmednagar, but the Mughal could not bring the entire kingdom of Nizam Shahi under their control. So, this was the story of Chand Bibi. Rani Durgavati. Gondwana can broadly be said to comprise the eastern part of Vidarbha. Now, eastern part of Vidarbha region, as you can see here, this is Vidarbha region. This region, Nagpur, right? So, this region is a Vidarbha region. So, eastern part of Vidarbha region basically. Uh, so, this region, eastern part, Vidarbha region, this region. So, Gondwana can broadly be said to be comprised of eastern part of Vidarbha, part of Madhya Pradesh to its north, western part of today's Chhattisgarh, northern part of Andhra Pradesh, and western part of Odisha. Durgavati, born in the dynasty Chanded Rajput, became the queen of Gondwana. So, Durgavati became the queen of Gondwana when she was married. She was an excellent administrator. The struggle of Gondwana Queen Durgavati against the Mughal is an important in medieval history. After her husband's death, Durgavati laid down her life while fighting against Akbar, but she did not surrender. Akbar was well versed and vigilant ruler. His religious policy was liberal and tolerant. He gave equal treatment to people from all religions. So this is a paragraph about how Akbar's administration was there. So he was a very his religious policies were liberal and tolerant. He founded Din Ilahi by incorporating noble principles from all religions. So he was basically a secular king, but never compelled anyone to adopt Din Ilahi. So this is something about Akbar administration, which was very good. Now Aurangzeb. Now after Akbar, uh, Akbar was a very important and uh, important ruler of Mughal kingdom. So after Akbar, Aurangzeb was a basically Aurangzeb was the last emperor after which, after his death, Mughal Empire became weak. So Aurangzeb won the war of succession amongst other son of Shah Jahan and became the emperor. So at that time there was a fighting between the sons of Shah Jahan, and one of the son of Shah Jahan was Aurangzeb. So Aurangzeb took the throne by detaining his father in 1658. So Aurangzeb basically detained his father and took the throne. Dara Shikoh, the elder son of Shah Jahan, was famous for religious tolerance. He translated more than 50 Upanishads in Persian languages. When Aurangzeb became the emperor at that time, the Mughal emperor extended from Kashmir in the north So Mughal Empire was from Kashmir in the north up to Ahmednagar in the south, and from Kabul in the west to Bengal in the east. So this was a very important and very big region. So as you can see here, I'll show you in the map. This is the current day Kashmir. This is Kashmir. Kashmir to Ahmednagar. So in the Maharashtra. So this was the region, and from Kabul is here, Kabul to here Bengal. So this region was a very big kingdom at the time of Aurangzeb. To this, Aurangzeb added Assam in the east. So later Assam was also added uh, to his kingdom. So almost a whole of the India was captured at the time of Aurangzeb, and regions of Adil Shahi Bijapur in the south and Qutub Shahi in Golconda after he ended these kingdoms. So almost all of the India, you can say almost all of the India, and Kabul to Assam. Conflict with Ahoms. In the 13th century CE, the people of community, Shan community in 13th century settled down in the valley of river Brahmaputra. They established their kingdom there. They were locally known as Ahom people. Ahom people. While Aurangzeb ruled, the Ahom had a prolonged struggle with the Mughals. Now the Mughal attacked the Ahom's region. The Ahom united under the leadership of Gada, Gadadhar Singh. Commander Lachit Borphukan gave an intense battle against Mughal. The Ahoms used the guerrilla technique in the conflict against the Mughals. It became impossible for the Mughals to create a strong base in Assam. So this was a resistance that was basically created by Ahoms in the Assam region. So, but ultimately Assam came into the under the control of Mughals under Aurangzeb. Still, these people from Shan community, they resisted Mughal rule. Conflict with the Sikhs. The ninth Guru of Sikh, Guru Tej Bahadur, protested strongly against Aurangzeb's policy of religious intolerance. Aurangzeb imprisoned him and beheaded him in 1675. So he beheaded him. After him, Guru Gobind Singh became the Guru of Sikh. Right? Guru Gobind Singh organized his followers and encouraged their martial spirit. So this is Guru Gobind Singh, as you can see here. He organized Sikh youth into a fighting force called the Khalsa Dal. Khalsa Dal. Their headquarters were at Anandpur. Aurangzeb sent his army to fight the Sikhs. His army attacked Anandpur. Although the Sikhs fought fiercely, they did not succeed. After that, Guru Gobind Singh came to Deccan in 1708. There was an attempt on his life when he was at Nanded. So basically, he went to Deccan. Guru Gobind Singh came to Deccan. Deccan was basically the region of Maharashtra, specifically Nanded region. Nanded region. Right? Soon after, the Guru succumbed to his wounds. Conflicts with Rajput. Now, Mughals had also conflict with Rajput. Akbar had secured the cooperation of Rajput with his policy of amicable relations. Aurangzeb could not obtain the cooperation of Rajput. So Akbar was a very intelligent king. He had a cooperation of Rajput, but Aurangzeb could not obtain the cooperation of Rajput. After the death of Rana Jaswant Singh of Marwar, Aurangzeb annexed his kingdom to the Mughal Empire. Durgadas Rathod crowned Jaswant Singh's minor son Ajit Singh as a king of Marwar. Durgadas Rathod fought hard against the Mughals. Aurangzeb sent Prince Akbar to Marwar to crush the resistance of Durgadas. Prince Akbar joined hands with Rajput and rose in revolt against Aurangzeb. So this was a betrayal by Aurangzeb's son, Prince Akbar. So Prince Akbar uh, revolted against Aurangzeb, his own, and efforts was made to seek help from the Marathas in the Maharashtra. So Rajputs also came to Maharashtra to take help from Marathas. In this revolt, Durgadas Rathore continues this struggle against the Mughals for the existence of Marwar. Now conflict with Marathas. So Aurangzeb or the Mughal rule had a conflict with all the region because they were trying to expand their region, their power in India. So they had to fight every uh, leader of the region. So Marathas also in the Maharashtra, Swaraj was established under the leadership of Shivaji Maharaj. So under the leadership of Shivaji Maharaj, Swaraj was established. Swaraj is basically self-rule. In his efforts to establish Swaraj, Shivaji Maharaj had to fight the Mughals too, along with the other enemies. Aurangzeb came down to the Deccan after the death of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. So after Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj's death, Aurangzeb came to the Deccan region. Deccan region is the Maharashtra region with the intention of conquering the whole of South India. So Deccan region, from Deccan region to the south was the entry to South India. So if you capture Deccan, you capture the south of India. You can almost rule south of India properly. So after Shivaji Maharaj death, Aurangzeb came and he had an intention of conquering the whole of South India. But the Marathas offered stiff resistance to Aurangzeb and defended their independence. But the Marathas were powerful force in Maharashtra, so they offered a stiff resistance and they never let rule the Aurangzeb in the Deccan. We shall study this struggle later. Now, in the later chapter, we will study this struggle in detail. So, these are some exercises, very important. So, name the following. Queen of Golconda was Durga Devi, son of Uday Singh, the founder of Mughal dynasty, the King Sultan of Bahmani Kingdom, the fighting force established by Guru Gobind Singh, Khalsa Dal. So this was the odd man out, Sultan Muhammad Qutubuddin Aibak, Muhammad Ghori, Babur. So basically, now briefly, how did the kingdoms of Vijayanagara and Bahmani emerge? What reforms did Muhammad Gawan make? So these are very important questions from this chapter alone. Why did it become possible for Mughal to strengthen their base in Assam? Because of Ahoms, right? So this is a very important exercise, and at the end of this chapter, this is Fort Devgiri, the historical fort of Devgiri. As you can see, it is very ancient and very old fort. Now here there is some activity. Obtain more information about the personalities mentioned in this chapter. Use reference book, the internet, the newspaper. Prepare a collage of the picture information in your activity book and display it in the history cell. So this is very interesting activity because lot of important rulers are mentioned in this chapter, and lot of important events in the history from 8th century to 17th 18th century uh, medieval India was explained in this chapter. So thank you guys for listening, and in the next chapter we will see religious synthesis. Thank you.